The demon preys on their daughter, communicating with her through the toy she had. Welcome to the Energumen episode 11. Don't forget to like, share, and comment.
Jude looked through the rain-streaked window as he drove, the familiar scent of wet earth filling the air. It was one of the few things he truly loved about this town, a primal aroma that spoke of nature untamed. Not every road here was tarred, and the community still largely depended on agriculture, which constituted a hefty 60% of their income. Tubers like yam, cassava, and potatoes flourished in the rich, dark soil, a testament to the land's bounty. Palm fruits, too, were widely appreciated. Their rich oil staple. Life, Jude mused, had a cruel sense of humor. He'd have laughed in disbelief. Perhaps even called anyone who prophesied it a fake, if they'd told him he'd be back in the small, sleepy town where he'd spent his youth and from which he'd so desperately fled, exploring it with his kids. That was the dream he'd envisioned for a life far, far away. But here he was, inexplicably redefined by life's abrupt turns, almost like a survivor of Thanos' snap. Everything had changed with bewildering rapidity. Circumstances he couldn't even begin to explain. His compensation, a lifeline from his former life, was promised in a month. The company assured him. He kept his fingers crossed, a silent, desperate prayer for stability amidst the chaos. They reached the church premises, the car splashing through puddles as they pulled into the parking lot. Jude led his family directly to the secretary's office, hope flickering within him. "Hello, Mr. Jude," the secretary greeted, her voice polite but firm. "I'm sorry, Pastor John isn't available for a visit today. He's preparing for crusade." I was so consumed by my own thoughts, by the urgent need to speak with the pastor, that I hadn't even noticed the flurry of activity on the sprawling field adjacent to the church. But now, as I stepped out of the secretary's office, the scale of it hit me. Large canopies stretched across the expanse, rows upon rows of plastic chairs beneath them. Light towers, rigged with blinding floodlights, stood sentinel, casting long shadows even in the overcast afternoon. Massive loudspeakers, powerful enough to vibrate your bones, were being tested with low hums and crackles. And then the enormous banner, stark white against the gray sky, caught my eye. It read in bold, triumphant letters, 3 mega nights of deliverance and restoration. Below it, in smaller print, the dates. It was starting tonight. A strange mix of relief and apprehension washed over me. 10 p.m. till dawn, I murmured, reading the schedule. This was it. This could be our chance. "I guess it's a good idea to attend this," I said to my wife, the words tasting like a desperate plea. At least we could spend the night here, with everyone in prayer. We moved back into my car, the unspoken tension thick between us. As we drove home, I laid out my thoughts, my fears. Our house, once a sanctuary, had become a war zone, a place devoid of peace. It was too much to think, too heavy to bear. This can't be happening to my family, I thought, a desperate protest rising in my chest. I have never, not once, even entertained this possibility. It's a nightmare, and we need to put a stop to it. Now, my sister had gone back home this morning. Her presence would be sorely missed. She was a strong woman, her resilience something I deeply admired. It felt, paradoxically, like these horrifying paranormal occurrences were bonding us, pulling us back together, forging a new, stronger family unit from the crucible of shared terror. We'd had our lunch earlier today. A quiet affair, everyone keeping a vigilant eye on everyone else. The house felt unnaturally quiet, almost unfriendly, as if holding its breath. It had been days now, and Junior, my son, hadn't had one of his snake episodes. The unsettling moments when his body would twist as if in agony, his eyes rolling back in his head. But deep down, I knew whatever it was just taking a nap, gathering its strength, and would awaken with a stronger, more insatiable thirst. Then a small mercy. The lights flickered on, signaling the return of power. A weak smile touched my lips as I picked up the remote and tuned the television to a sports channel. They were showing a recap of the Premier League, the roar of the crowd a comforting, mundane sound. My boys, sensing the shift in atmosphere, joined me on the couch, their young faces illuminated by the screen. As we began to analyze the game, debating tactics and dissecting goals with shared passion. For a brief time, the looming darkness retreated. A gentle tap on my arm jolted me awake. It was Rosemary. I hadn't even realized I'd fallen asleep on the couch. I checked the time on my phone. It was 4:24 p.m. "Daddy, my toy broke in two," she said, her voice a small, mournful whisper. I told her to go bring it. It was her favorite Spider-Man action figure. A gift from me. All I had to do was fix the detachable hands. And it was good to go. As I reattached the limb, she looked up at me, her innocent eyes wide with profound question. "Daddy, who do you think will win in a battle between Spider-Man and Batman?" I looked at her and smiled, the kind of smile that hides 1,000 worries. "Spider-Man is definitely taking this, honey," I said confidently. "Why?" she asked, her brow furrowed in earnest curiosity. This was it, I thought. This was one of those exact scenarios that might have a lasting effect on a child's life. What she heard today, the explanation, she might hold on to it until adulthood, shaping her understanding of strength, of good and evil. I believe Spider-Man will win because his powers are much more supernatural, much more superpowers. I began, carefully choosing my words. So he's got more agility, he's got more stamina, he's got more speed, and incredible punching power. Batman is really a cool hero, I agree, but he's just a guy with black customs and a lot of martial arts experience. He relies on his gadgets and his brain, not on innate, superhuman abilities. I felt a sense of triumph, like I had truly nailed it. That satisfying feeling of answering a complex question you didn't even know you knew the answer to. "But Dad," Rosemary countered, her voice surprisingly firm. "What if you are wrong? My old friend says he prefers Batman because he's the king of the night, unpredictable, visible but yet invincible, and he thirsts for justice and doesn't stop till he's gotten it." For a moment, I was utterly shocked. How could my child, so young and seemingly naive, sum up such complex characteristics? String together words and concepts as if she'd practiced it, or read it countless times in some forbidden tome. But then, something else, far more chilling, seized my attention. She mentioned old friend. A cold dread began to seep into my bones, a prickling sensation rising on my scalp. I drew her closer, my voice strained with a manufactured casualness. "Darling, can you tell me about your old friend?" "He told me he was your best friend when he was alive, Daddy." The world tilted. I nearly ran mad with fear, my heart hammering against my ribs. Alive? This was getting much, much worse than I had ever anticipated. I couldn't believe any of this was happening. That's my father she's talking about. Why would he, or whatever was impersonating him, prey on a child? A chilling thought, a terrifying suspicion began to form. I snatched the Spider-Man toy from her hand, my fingers trembling, and called out to my wife, who had just entered the living room. "Honey, quickly, take this and burn it." She just stood there, eyes wide, her brow furrowed in confusion, waiting for an explanation. I could see the questions forming in her mind, the disbelief. "It looks like my father is communicating with Rosemary through this." I told her, my voice strained. I watched the curiosity, the dawning horror on her face. She had 1,000 questions, yet at the same time, nothing to say. She just mentioned that my father, our late father, had a discussion with her regarding this. I held up the toy, a grotesque symbol of fear, offering it to my wife's outstretched hands. She quickly took it from me, her own hands now shaking. Rosemary tried to resist, her little body stiffening. "No, my Spider-Man." "Shoo, honey," I soothed, pulling her close, trying to distract her. "Spider-Man is spoiled, completely broken. We will have to replace him, okay? Now tell me, what other superhero would you want to get you?" She relaxed a bit, her tears forgotten, and a small, hopeful smile bloomed on her face. "Superman would be cool, Daddy." I lifted her onto my knees, hugging her tight, promising her a brand new toy very soon. "But promise me, honey," I whispered, holding her chin so she'd meet my gaze. "You will have to tell me everything your old friend tells you, but most especially when he comes around again, tell him to go away, that you don't want him anymore as your friend. Do you know why? He's so dangerous, and he tried severely to harm me. That's why I told him I don't want him to be my friend anymore." I felt a pang of guilt for that last statement, a lie born of desperation. My real father had been so kind to me, the perfect father in my eyes, always making provisions for what I needed. People had even thought he spared the rod and spoiled the child, because I was his only son. He had remarried after divorcing his first wife, who had given him just one female child. My own mother, his second wife, had tragically died at childbirth, a rumor that spread through the town and persisted until I was old enough to hear it. They said she was from the waters, a river spirit, and that such women usually died during childbirth, returning to their watery abodes. It had often left me wondering if I, too, was from the waters, if I carried some ethereal lineage. The myths, the legends, they weren't always wrong. But this was different. This wasn't a myth about my origins. This was my father, or something masquerading as him, preying on my innocent daughter,